Ibrim, Hebrews, chapters 8 through 10. Now the summary of what we are saying is, we have such a Kohen Hagadol who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the greatness in the Shamayim, and who serves in the Mikdash and of the true tent which Yahuah put up and not man. For every Kohen Hagadol is appointed to offer both gifts and slaughterings. So it was also necessary for this one to have somewhat to offer. For if indeed he were on earth, he would not be a Kohen, since there are Kohanim who offer the gifts according to the Torah, who serve a copy and shadow of the Shamayim, as Moshe was warned when he was about to make the tent. For he said, "See that you make all according to the pattern shown you on the mountain." But now he has obtained a more excellent service, inasmuch as he is also mediator of a better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. For if that first had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second. For finding fault with them, he says, "See, the days are coming, says Yahuah, when I shall conclude with the house of Yisrael and with the house of Yehudah a renewed covenant, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Mitzrayim, because they did not continue in my covenant, and I disregarded them, says Yahuah. Because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Yisrael after those days, says Yahuah, giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall by no means teach each one his neighbor, and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahuah, because they all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, because I shall forgive their unrighteousness, and their sins and their lawlessnesses I shall no longer remember. By saying renewed, he has made the first old. Now what becomes old and growing aged is near disappearing. Now the first indeed had regulations of worship and the earthly Mikdash, for a tent was prepared, the first part, in which was the lampstand and the table and the showbread, which is called the Mikdash, and after the second veil, the part of the tent which is called Most Kodesh, to which belonged the golden censer and the ark of the covenant overlaid on all sides with gold, in which were the golden pot that held the manna, and the rod of Aharon that budded, and the tablets of the covenant, and above it the cherubim of esteem were overshadowing the place of atonement, about which we do not now speak in detail. And these, having been prepared like this, the Kohanim always went into the first part of the tent, accomplishing the services. But into the second part the Kohen Hagadol went alone once a year, not without blood, which he offered for himself and for sins of ignorance of the people, the Ruach HaKodesh signifying this, that the way into the Kodesh Mikdash was not yet made manifest while the first tent has a standing, which was a parable for the present time, in which both gifts and slaughterings are offered, which are unable to perfect the one serving as to his conscience, only as to foods and drinks and different washings and fleshly regulations imposed until a time of straightening out. But Mashiach, having become a Kohen Hagadol of the coming good, through the greater and more perfect tent, not made with hands, that is, not of this creation, entered into the Kodesh Mikdash once for all, not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood, having obtained everlasting redemption. For if the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of a heifer sprinkling the defiled makes kadosh for the cleansing of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Hamashiach, who through the everlasting Ruach offered himself unblemished to Yahuah, cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim? And because of this, He is the mediator of a renewed covenant, so that death having taken place for redemption of the transgressions under the first covenant, those who are called might receive the promise of the everlasting inheritance. For where a covenant is, it is necessary for the death of the covenanted one to be established. For a covenant over those dead is firm, since it is never valid while the covenanted one is living. Therefore not even the first was instituted without blood. For when, according to Torah, every command had been spoken by Moshe to all the people, he took the blood, the heifer, with water, and scarlet wool, and hyssop, and sprinkled both the book itself and all the people, saying, "This is the blood of the covenant which Yahuah commanded you." And in the same way he sprinkled with blood both the tent and all the vessels of the service. And according to the Torah, almost all is cleansed with blood, and without shedding of blood there is no forgiveness. It was necessary then that the copies of the ones of the Shamayim should be cleansed with these, but the ones of the Shamayim themselves with better slaughter offerings than these. For Mashiach has not entered into a mikdash made by hand, figures of the true, but into the Shamayim itself, now to appear in the presence of Yahuah on our behalf, not that he should offer himself often, as the Kohen Hagadol enters into the mikdash year by year with blood not his own. For if so, he would have had to suffer often since the foundation of the world. But now he has appeared once for all at the end of the ages to put away sin by the offering of himself. And as it awaits men to die once, and after this the judgment, so also Hamashiach, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, shall appear a second time, apart from sin, to those waiting for him unto deliverance. For the Torah, having a shadow of the good to come, and not the image itself of the matters, was never able to make perfect those who draw near with the same slaughter offerings which they offer continually year by year. Otherwise, would they not have ceased to be offered? Because those who served, once cleansed, would have had no more consciousness of sins. But in those is a reminder of sins year by year. For it is impossible for blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. Therefore, coming into the world, he says, "Slaughtering and meal offering you did not desire, but a body you have prepared for me. In burnt offerings, even for sin, you did not delight. Then I said, See, I come. In the roll of the book it has been written concerning me, to do your desire, O Elohim." Saying above, slaughter and meal offering and burnt offerings even for sin you did not desire, nor delighted in, which are offered according to the Torah. Then he said, "See, I come to do your desire, O Yahuah." He takes away the first to establish the second. By that desire, we have been kadosh through the offering of the body of Yahusha HaMashiach once for all. And indeed, every Kohen stands day by day doing service and repeatedly offering the same slaughter offerings which are never able to take away sins. But he, having offered one slaughter offering for sins for all time, sat down at the right hand of Yahuah, waiting from that time onward until his enemies are made a footstool for his feet. For by one offering he has perfected for all time those who are being kadosh. And the Ruach HaKodesh also witnesses to us, for after having said before, "This is the covenant that I shall make with them after those days," says Yahuah, "giving my laws into their hearts, and in their minds I shall write them. And their sins and their lawlessnesses I shall remember no more." Now, where there is forgiveness of these, there is no longer a slaughter offering for sin. So, brothers, having boldness to enter into the Mikdash by the blood of Yahushua, by a new and living way which he instituted for us through the veil that is his flesh, and a Kohen Hagadol over the house of Yahweh. Let us draw near with a true heart in completeness of belief, having our hearts sprinkled from a wicked conscience and our bodies washed with clean water. Let us hold fast the confession of our expectation without yielding, for he who promised is trustworthy. And let us be concerned for one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging, and so much more as you see the day coming near. For if we sin purposely after we have received the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a slaughter offering for sins, but some fearsome anticipation of judgment and a fierce fire which is about to consume the opponents. Anyone who has disregarded the Torah of Moshe dies without compassion on the witness of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much more worse punishment do you think shall he deserve who has trampled the bane of Yahuah underfoot, counted the blood of the covenant by which he was kadosh as common, and insulted the Ruah of favor? For we know him who has said, "Vengeance is mine, I shall repay," says Yahuah. And again, Yahuah shall judge his people. It is fearsome to fall into the hands of the living Elohim. But remember the former days, when after you were enlightened, you endured a great struggle with sufferings. On the one hand, you were exposed to reproaches and pressures, and on the other hand, you became sharers with those who were so treated. For you sympathized with me in my chains, and you accepted with joy the seizure of your possessions, knowing that you have a better and a lasting possession for yourselves in the Shamayim. Do not then lose your boldness, which has great reward. For you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the desire of Elohim, you receive the promise. For yet a little while, he who is coming shall come, and shall not delay. But the righteous shall live by belief. But if anyone draws back, my being has no pleasure in him. But we are not of those who draw back to destruction, but of belief to the preservation of high.